"Marry me," said the baronet's daughter, "and I will pay you £40 and the fare to anywhere you like." Jeremiah straightened up with the fork in his hand and a barrow of soiled straw behind him, and considered, not for the first time that fortnight, how badly a man may misjudge the consequences of a small deception. "Miss Hale," he said, "I am a groom. I'm aware of what you are. That is the entire merit of the scheme." She had come into the stable in a riding habit with the veil pinned back, and there was a hectic color high on her cheekbones. "Understand me, Jem. On Thursday my father signs a settlement that gives me to Mr. Vasey of Corve. Mr. Vasey is 51 and has buried 2 wives, and there is a girl at Corve who will not speak of him. I cannot refuse. I am 23 and I have £9. But a woman already married cannot be married again, and there is no court in England that will unmake a license properly got. So I mean to be married before Thursday, and I mean it to be to a man my father cannot buy. And you fix on the man who cleans the boxes." "I fix on the only honest person on this estate." Clemency Hale said it without any softness at all, as a matter of accounting. "You have been here 14 days. On the first, you carried old Marnie's water because his back was out and did not tell anyone. On the fourth, you refused a shilling from the dealer's man in the yard, and I saw you refuse it. On the 9th, my father struck you across the shoulder with his crop for standing in his light, and you did not flinch, and you did not sulk afterwards, which is more than any gentleman of my acquaintance could manage." She drew breath. "It would be a marriage in name. You would have a wife who asks nothing of you and does not follow you. I want the license and the register, nothing else. Will you do it?" Jeremiah, 9th Duke of Yarrow, master of Yarrow Chase, 11,000 acres, 4 advowsons, and a seat he had held for exactly 8 months, stood in a loose box at Hallowfield in a leather waistcoat that smelled of horse, and understood that he was in very serious trouble. He had come to Hallowfield because somebody was cheating him. His stud had bought 9 horses in 2 years from Sir Ambrose Hale at prices that would have been high for sound animals, and 4 of them had come up roaring or spavined within the 12-month, and his own agent's letters on the subject had a smoothness to them that a suspicious man might dislike. Jeremiah was a suspicious man. He had also spent the whole of his youth in stables, because his father had thought a boy should know a horse from the ground up, and he could sit a rough colt, plait a mane, and dress a hoof as well as any man on his own payroll. So he had ridden to Hallowfield in his oldest coat, given his mother's family name, and hired himself out for a fortnight to see what he could see. He had seen a great deal. He had seen a dealer named Pell come 3 times to the yard after dark. He had seen his own agent's clerk take an envelope. He had a list in his pocket of 6 horses with their true histories and the names of the men who had sworn otherwise, and on Friday he had intended to go home, resume his life, and ruin 4 people by letter. He had also seen, every morning of those 14 days, a young woman come down to the yard at 6 to feed a blind pony nobody had any use for, and had heard her, through a wall, tell her aunt that she would not weep about Thursday because weeping made her father kind for an hour and worse for a week. "Miss Hale," he said, "there are things about me you do not know." "I do not want to know them," her jaw set. "You are not to tell me. If you have a past, keep it. If you are running from something, I do not care what. I am not offering you my confidence. I am offering you £40 to sign a book." "That is precisely my difficulty." "Then say no, and I shall go to Marnie, who is 60 and will do it out of pity, and my father will have the marriage cried a fraud within a month because Marnie cannot be trusted to hold his tongue in drink." She stopped. Her hands, he noticed, were shaking, and she had put them behind her so that they should not be seen. "Jem, please." Nobody had said please to him in 8 months. Not for 40 pounds, Jeremiah said. Her face went white and then perfectly still, and she inclined her head with a dignity that took his breath and turned to go. Miss Hale, I did not say no. He set the fork against the wall. I said not for 40 pounds. Keep your 9 pounds, you will want it. I will do it for nothing on 3 conditions, and you will hear all 3 before you thank me. She turned back. Name them. First, the license is got properly, in a parish where the vicar is a man of character, and it is done in daylight with 2 witnesses who can be found again. No hole-and-corner business at midnight. A marriage worth having must be a marriage that survives a lawyer. He held up a finger. Second, before you sign that book you will hear one thing from me about myself. 1. You will not be permitted to stop me, and when you have heard it you may walk out of the church and I shall not say a word against it. And third, when it is done, you do not go to a hired room in a strange town with 9 pounds. I have a place you may go to. It is respectable, and there is a woman there who will look after you, and you will be under nobody's obligation. He watched her eyes narrow. You may believe that or not as you choose. Clemency Hale looked at him for a long moment across the trodden straw, in the gray light of a stable in November, and Jeremiah discovered that he minded very much what she decided. You are a strange sort of groom, she said. I have been told so. They were married on the Wednesday morning at Little Stanton, 7 miles off, in a church with a Norman font and a vicar named Dr. Corbett, who had a face like a walnut and asked questions until he was satisfied. The witnesses were the vicar's sister and the parish clerk, both of whom signed clearly and could be found again for the next 30 years. Clemency came in a plain dark green gown with her mother's garnet cross and no flowers. Jeremiah had washed to the elbows in a horse trough at 5 in the morning, and had put on the only good coat he had brought, which was a groom's Sunday coat, brushed. She looked at it and said, You did not have to. I did, rather. They said the words. Her voice did not shake once, and he thought that if he lived to be 90, he would remember the flat courage of it. When Dr. Corbett turned them toward the vestry table, and the register lay open with the ink standing ready, Jeremiah put his hand flat on the page. The one thing, he said. Clemency's chin came up. Now. Now, before your name goes down, because afterwards is a coward's hour. He heard the sound of a horse in the lane outside and ignored it. Miss Hale Clemency, my name is not Jem Rook. Rook was my mother's name and Jeremiah is my own, and the rest of it. Your Grace, said Dr. Corbett, who had read the license, and who had gone rather pink with the strain of a fortnight's silence. The church door banged open. Sir Ambrose Hale came up the aisle with his crop still in his hand, and 2 of his men behind him, and Mr. Vasey of Corve, purple in a plum-colored coat, bringing up the rear. Take hold of her, Sir Ambrose said. Jeremiah stepped in front of his wife, and did not raise his voice. You will stand where you are. You, said Sir Ambrose, you are dismissed, and you will be at the assizes by Christmas, and if you have touched my daughter I will have you. Dr. Corbett, Jeremiah said, be so good as to read out the license. The vicar read it out. He read it slowly and with immense satisfaction, from the top, including the words by special license, and the name of the man to whom it had been granted 11 days earlier by a bishop who had been at school with the applicant's father. Jeremiah Rook Ansell, 9th Duke of Yarrow Chase. The silence in that church was one of the great pleasures of Jeremiah's life, and he was ashamed of how much he enjoyed it. Sir Ambrose's crop came down slowly. Mr. Vasey of Corve got out one syllable and stopped. Your Grace, Sir Ambrose said, this is, I did not, good God, sir, you were mucking out my. I was, and it was the most instructive fortnight I have spent. Jeremiah took a folded paper from his breast. 6 horses, hail. Sold to my stud in 2 years, 3 of them by you in your own hand, with certificates of soundness you knew to be false, and a dealer named Pell coming to your yard after dark, and my own agent's clerk taking money in your stable passage on the 4th of this month, which I witnessed while carrying water for a man with a bad back. I have the names of both grooms who will swear to it. I intended to send this to my solicitors on Friday. Your Grace, I have changed my intention. Jeremiah put the paper away. You are the father of my wife. I do not send my wife's father to the assizes. She has been humiliated enough for one lifetime, and I will not add a trial to it. You will instead repay the stud £4,200 over 3 years. You will not sell another horse in this county, and you will never again lay a crop on any living thing while I am within riding distance. If any part of that displeases you, the paper goes to my solicitors after all, and I shall regret nothing. He looked past him. Mr. Vasey, your settlement is waste paper. Go home. They went. Sir Ambrose Hale went last, and at the door he turned and looked at his daughter with an expression Jeremiah could not read and did not care to. Then the church was empty except for a vicar, his sister, a parish clerk, and a woman in a dark green gown who had not said one word in 5 minutes. Well, Clemency said at last. Her voice was not steady now. Well. Sign the book, Jeremiah said gently. Or do not. It is not too late. Dr. Corbett will tell you what may be done about a marriage unsigned, and he is an honest man, and I will put you and your aunt in a house of your own with an income for life, whichever way you choose, and nobody in England will make you go back to your father. She looked at the pen. She looked at his sleeve, the good brushed groom's coat, and at the callus on his palm where the fork had been, and at his face, and her eyes filled. You let him hit you, she said, with the crop, on the 9th. You are a duke, and you stood in my father's stable yard and let him hit you across the shoulder, and you never said a word. If I had spoken, I should have learnt nothing. You have 11,000 acres. Somewhat more in a wet year. And I offered you £40. Clemency put her hand over her mouth. It was not clear, for a moment, which way it would go. Then it went, helplessly, into laughter, and the laughter turned at once into weeping, and she cried into her mother's garnet cross with her fist against her lips, while Dr. Corbett's sister found a handkerchief, and Jeremiah stood one careful pace away with his hands at his sides, because he had not the smallest right to touch her. When she could speak, she said, "Why did you agree?" "Because you came down to that yard at 6 every morning for a fortnight to feed a blind pony that is no use to anybody," Jeremiah said, "and because I heard you tell your aunt through a wall that you would not weep about Thursday, since weeping made him kind for an hour and worse for a week. I have been 8 months a duke, Clemency. Everybody I meet wants something, and every one of them tells me what they think I wish to hear. You told a stable hand the truth, and asked him for a favor, and offered to pay for it. There is nothing in my whole life I have been more flattered by. I said terrible things to you. I said keep your past. I said I was not offering you my confidence. You were protecting yourself. It was well done." He hesitated and then said the rest, because the day appeared to be for saying things. "I would have you understand that this is your marriage on your terms, and it stays so. In name, if you wish it in name. You shall have Yarrow's north wing, which has better light than the rest of the house, and an allowance you cannot spend, and a bolt on the door, and I shall be entirely occupied with drainage. I mean that. You are not obliged to feel a solitary thing for me, because a vicar has read out a license." Clemency Hale wiped her face, and looked at him with her eyes red and her chin up. "May I say something, your grace?" "Jeremiah." "May I say something, Jeremiah?" She took a breath. For a fortnight I have been coming down to that yard at 6 because of a pony, and staying because of a groom. I told myself it was because you were kind to Marnie. It was not. It was because you looked at me as though I were a person and not a settlement, and because when my father hit you, you looked at me afterwards and not at him, to see whether I was frightened. I have had one thought in my head for 11 days, and it has been an entirely hopeless thought, and I have spent it wondering how a baronet's daughter could possibly marry a stable hand. Her voice cracked, and she went on anyway. And it never once, not for one moment, entered my head to wonder how a stable hand might marry me, because I did not think I was worth so much trouble. Jeremiah found that his own voice had gone. So I shall not be having the north wing, Clemency said, or the bolt, in time, when we know one another and not 1 hour before, because I will not be grateful at you for the rest of my life. She held out her hand. But you may take me home, and you may tell me on the road about the drainage, and about the other 8 months, and about how you came to be 8 months a duke with nobody who tells you the truth. He took her hand and turned it over and kissed the palm of it, which was not what a duke did in a church in front of a vicar's sister, and she closed her fingers on it afterwards, as though she meant to keep it. Then Clemency Ansell, Duchess of Yarrow, signed her name in the register of Little Stanton in a clear, small, unhurried hand, and they rode out of the lane together on 2 of Sir Ambrose Hale's horses, which Jeremiah observed were the only sound ones in the yard. The blind pony came to Yarrow Chase within the week, in a hired van, at the express order of the Duke, and lived 11 years in a paddock under the library window, where a duchess fed him at 6 o'clock most mornings of her life. And when their eldest was old enough to ask how his mother and father met, they told him the truth, that she had offered a groom £40 to sign a book, and that the groom had said it was not enough, and then had married her for nothing, in a brushed coat, in daylight, with 2 witnesses who could be found again.